Hey everybody, here we are talking about coaching. I'm, as always, Yannick. Hello, and I'm here with Nikki. Hello, Nikki.
Yo, reporting from Beachside office.
Beachside office always makes us a little bit jealous if you're not watching this but listening. It just Nikki looks so cool right now with her hat and sunglasses. The two sitting on the beach around the corner from the surf camp. You can actually hear. We tried getting the wave sound in because they sound marvelous, but also. With a digital compression, it's barely recognizable, and without, it was just sounding like really loud white noise. So we spare you the sound of the waves to not make us more jealous, and maybe jump straight into our question. Um, I've heard it a number of times the last couple of weeks from supervisees, from coaches who are working with clients, and either like there's a few different angles. Either the client, like either there's a marketing question and they're wondering, do I need to create a set program, right? Like a 6 session or a 3 months or a 6 months program where they guide the client more through a journey with exercises or with questions, lines of inquiry, methodologies, assessments, and then feedback and follow up, right? So somehow getting a program together, right? Many coaches who are starting out get marketed this idea that you have a set program and then you guide your people through it, right? And then people know what they're buying and what the outcomes are. And so everything is a bit more structured. It's a bit more tricky for coaches who work facilitatively to get on board with a program, right? The other angle is a coach has worked with a client for a couple of sessions, and then the client starts asking, "What do you think? What do you think we should be talking about?" Um, asking for more guidance from the client. So I wanted to use this opportunity to talk about set programs and the benefits and pitfalls of these. Right. So yeah, I'm just curious to get a temperature check from you, Nikki. Have you run into this before, or what's your feelings about kind of set coaching programs?
Yeah, I've definitely come across kind of, the two different ways of approaching coaching before, right? And, I think, like you said in your opening, I think they both have different merits and different pitfalls. I can definitely see where the demand and maybe the appeal for something that feels neatly packaged and measurable and has a bit more of a delineated outcome, so you know what you can expect, why that would be appealing. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. My initial like reaction to that is just fundamentally different than maybe a more relational approach, for instance, in a kind of more open-ended coaching um, approach. And I think it just serves different people at different times for different reasons.
Yeah, I think to me, for the longest time, I was very much about set programs because they didn't, and they still don't seem to reflect the human journey, right? Often we miss what we should really be talking about while we're doing some sort of exercise or assessment. I think what they do well is they offer more certainty so that people know what they're getting themselves into. It's much more difficult to sell coaching when somebody asks you, "So, what would we do in the sessions, and how would this work?" And you're like, "Well, how could we possibly know? It depends on how the conversation goes, and it depends on what you're bringing and what your learning styles are and how you respond to this. This is a partnership. I can't tell you what this is going to be and what we're going to be talking about. How could I know?" That doesn't really sell well. Somebody needs to trust you and coaching in order to say yes to that sort of thing. So I think one of the things that came up through these conversations is that it feels like a distraction when the client wants to engage in these kind of exercises or assessments, or go through a certain process. They work very well when you work with a very particular challenge or desire, and you have a very well chosen, well defined audience for it. So if you
mm,
pick your clients super carefully, and over time you can probably create some really good programs for a very particular kind of people, right? A particular subsection of ADHD or autism or weight loss, or, extrovert entrepreneurs in England, in their 40s, from a particular cultural, socioeconomic background, and that particular character. I don't know. There's a lot that you can find in terms of general themes that would help people, right? I supervise a few career coaches who say, yeah, absolutely, I can create a series of exercises that, if I would just give them to people, they would deliver value, right? It might not
mm,
solve all the problems. Sometimes the conversation is still a different one that we need to have, but there's value in giving people a set of lines of thought, or a set of exercises, set of assessments, set of questions for them to reflect on. And then they can come back and we discuss it, right? So there's this notion of opening doors through even the most surface level exercise. And
mm,
once you allow the doors to open, then 2 exercises through your 6 exercise playbook, you might have exactly the conversation that you need to be having,
mm,
because those exercises opened the door into it. Doesn't, so I think as long as we hold any form of pre-designed journey lightly, and then allow us to have the, like, deviate, and once the conversation we really need to have knocks on the door, we have that conversation. I think those kind of exercises, or those kind of guided journeys, that can be really helpful, right? As long as they're not used to distract from the conversation we really need to be having. So I'm a big fan of,
mm,
we don't know where we go from here, to just sit in that and feel the discomfort of not knowing where to go and what to do, right? I am reluctant often to jump in with a set of exercises or questions that kind of save my client from bearing the discomfort in which they're in right now, and just latching onto
mm.
a solution that came from the outside, in this case, the coach. So in that way, it is a distraction, but it can also be a really helpful distraction, because it's an easy way in to the thing that we might really need to be talking about. So
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. Let me pause there. See what arrives.
Yeah, I mean, a few thoughts came up for me. I'm not sure how I feel about the word distraction, maybe. Um, I can see it more maybe as like it's almost like an icebreaker, a conversation starter. I feel like distraction for me, I guess the reason I say that is working in the context in which I've been working, and like, back here in Portugal, where currently I'm back working at a surf camp for a little while. Um, and I have offered at times coaching for people who are here for a week, and, like I get the opportunity to maybe have one session with them. So as part of that, what I'd come up with is two different options of sessions, either one based on the wheel of life to help these people who are here for a week and often in like a transition phase, like just take an overview of like actually check in where they're at and come out with some like action points to take away for different areas of their life. And the other one was based on the a values exercise. So to like, again, similarly delineate your values and walk away with some actions. And all of that I would do in an hour and a half. And, there was, of course, an opportunity there also to invite them to do further coaching if that's something they felt they wanted to do based on that kind of exposure, first contact with coaching. But I wouldn't say that those sessions didn't, in and of themselves, offer anything, even though they were kind of structured as a program, so to speak, even though it was only a one session program. So I think when you were speaking just then, my feeling about it is, and again, like inevitably it always feeds into where I'm at in my own journey with all these subjects. What I've recently realized again, and like through a therapy journey more than necessarily a coaching journey, although I use them quite interchangeably, um, sometimes, like, I think the kind of client who is comfortable and already open to sitting in more uncertainty in coaching in a kind of general global climate and lifestyle in which there is already so much overwhelm and uncertainty, right? Like, that's a certain kind of client who already has a degree of like, I don't know, like a certain level of progress. Whilst I think someone who's maybe having their first contact with coaching, or who's just in a time in their life where everything is so chaotic and they're so overwhelmed, I think that structure of a program and like a predictable outcome can be really just like comforting and anchoring and maybe all that they're able to handle at that time. But like you say, and I want to say rather than a distraction, it becomes maybe the first step in becoming more open or evolving into a client who can handle more uncertainty in the future. So I don't know, my take is a bit more like that on it, I think.
Yeah, so if we have a client that is quite happy to sit there, do the work that is necessary, it doesn't need that kind of certainty, perhaps, in the like we can just go straight into the facilitative coaching. But
Mm,
that the security and certainty that a set program offers can really help get the coaching going, right? And
I think so.
similarly, when I first considered doing some corporate work, a lot of people told me, "Oh, get trained up on an assessment, and then use that as an entry into coaching." Right? Get trained on 360 feedback methodologies, or some sort of assessment, and then people come in for feedback sessions, and then
Hmm.
conversations open, right? And the reality of it is often you don't get enough time in these feedback sessions to actually do any coaching, but all the doors into coaching have opened, and it can be quite frustrating to sit there with someone where so much work could be done right now, but you just are not given the time to
Mm,
properly follow up. Um, but that's a good example of something that is quite structured and clearly defined of what it delivers, to then open doors into a much broader, more organic style coaching. So I think in that way, these kind of guided journeys can be really helpful. As long as we hold them lightly, because if we get too structured on it, then I think they really are a distraction. And that in
right.
itself,
Yeah.
like I talked to a bunch of coaches who started, like they had their client acquisition done by someone else, and so they're being given clients, but they have to work the agency company's methodology, right? And then you're kind of stuck within that methodology sometimes, because you're like, oh, I know a strength approach would really help. Or I had a coach who said, I really, everything screamed for this client to work with Lego, right? And really do something hands-on and creative. I think that would really unlock them. But, within the organization that they were doing the coaching in, that just wasn't a appropriate tool to use.
Mm,
So I think it's a call out to hold whatever guided journey you're offering, no matter how much you believe in it, to hold it very lightly and don't shy away from
mm.
deviating from whatever plan you had set out, and have the conversation that matters.
Yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense now. I can better understand why distraction would be appropriate to. Yeah, I get that.
Hmm.
Interesting.
I think I think that's all I've got to say on that topic. I used to be so anti set programs, and I think in particular contexts they can really work, or if we hold them lightly, they can really warm
Mm,
a client up. Right? Start with some safety and comfort. Why not? It doesn't all have to be all throwing the client into the pitfall of the existential void. Some clients are well
mm.
up for that, but I think some clients need some more easing into the process.
Yeah, I think, it just reminds me of something that I've really recently, again, through personal experiences, been learning. It's like it really just can be different strokes for different folks, and you just have to find the thing rather than do nothing, find whatever the thing is that at least gets you started and does something for you at that time. And then, inevitably, I think often you journey in a more adventurous or different direction over time. But I think,
Right.
again, I can really relate to why a set program would also be so appealing to very many people with a certain kind of mind or state of mind, and mine's probably one of them at times too. So I can understand.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, right? It's not necessarily the client who is seeking and desiring structure and certainty, knowing what we would be doing. It might also be the
Mm,
coach,
for
Right.
sure.
So if you're listening to this, just do a little check in with yourself. Like, how much uncertainty are you actually comfortable with, and how much is this guided program or set journey that you're designing? It's fun to design very often, right? But like, is
Mm.
that your need or is that the client's need?
Mm.
And if
Nice.
it's yours, what would it take to let go of knowing what you will be talking about?
Yeah, I feel you.
Right. Cool. Curious as always what people's ideas are about set programs, from a marketing perspective, from a coaching perspective, from any other perspective. Um, if any of this resonates, make it swing, eh?
Sweet. I hope the audio wasn't too awful, guys,
Yes, we'll vow to be in better environment. Although, what better environment than the beach, really? I mean, audio
if we're
wise,
honest.
yeah.
Need some noise
But
canceling earphones.
yeah, no, you don't need beach canceling headphones, but that's something that shouldn't exist.
That just would be wrong. Yeah.
Okay, see you next time, guys. All right, that was us talking about coaching. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. I appreciate your commitment to being the best coach you can be. I always say, if any of this resonates, make it swing. We grow through conversations. So if you found value in this episode, please go on and share it, or with another coaching colleague of yours or a friend. Anything that we can do to help people get inspired to reflect more on their coaching and be better coaches. I really believe in the generative impact that coaching has. So if you wanted to support the coaching and this mission, then what you can do is share this, right? Talk to somebody, send the link to someone, have that conversation with someone. What would really help us is to leave a positive review or a rating on one of the podcasting platforms. Generally, the more people we reach, the more time and effort we can put into creating these episodes for you. And higher quality means also more conversations, maybe inviting high profile guests into the conversation. That'd be a dream of ours. So you can make this worth it. And I appreciate you being with us, and I appreciate you considering to help. So thank you. See you soon. Send us a question.